Hello everyone and welcome to Rollinish. I'm Matt, and in this video we're going to be diving into Xanathar's Guide to Everything, specifically looking at the subclass options provided for the Paladin class from this supplemental book. If you haven't done so already, be sure to check out our playlists, specifically the class ones, as we break down what all classes get levels 1 through 20, including what to expect feature-wise with the subclasses provided for each class as they appear in your 2014 Player's Handbook. Now we're diving into Xanathar's Guide to Everything and the additional subclass features offered by that supplemental book. Before you decide to play one of these subclasses, be sure to speak with your DM and make sure that this is something that is going to fit the campaign that you intend on playing. All right, diving in to the Paladin options, there are two additional options in this supplemental book for 5th edition, and that is the Oath of Conquest and the Oath of Redemption. The Oath of Conquest, when you read it, could very much come off as playing an evil paladin. And while that might be true, I don't think it always has to be evil, right? Oath of Conquest paladins often seek glory and the subjugation of their enemies. That doesn't make them inherently evil. You could be overthrowing a tyrant rule. You could be overthrowing some kind of evil influence over a land and really want to see that conquest through. When you read the Oath of Conquest description in your Xanathar's Guide to Everything book, it talks about they must crush the forces of chaos. Sometimes they're called night tyrants or ironmongers. Those who swear this oath gather into grim orders that serve gods or philosophies of war and well-ordained might. They seek glory in battle. That doesn't always mean evil. Now, you could work with your DM and be like, I'm going to play like this paladin who serves a tyrant. Okay, maybe that fits the setting that you're playing. But it doesn't always have to be that way. Some of the tenets of the conquest, because it's important to understand not just choosing a subclass for its features, but understanding how to roleplay that. After all, the Paladin has a very specific guide to role-playing the class. Otherwise, you are at risk of breaking your oath and becoming an oath breaker, something that your DM could enforce, foregoing your subclass and adopting one based on the decisions you've made as a role player. So the tenets are important, and the tenets for conquest are douse the flames of hope. It's not enough to merely defeat an enemy in battle. Your victory must be so overwhelming that your enemy's will to fight is shattered forever. A blade can end a life. Fear can end an empire. Again, this could be a paladin leading a party to overthrow an evil tyrant. And as a inherently good guy, I would want my enemies to fear me so they don't try to uprise. That's just the way that I'm thinking about this class and the connotations that sometimes come along with the Oath of Conquest as a subclass. Another tenet is rules with an iron fist. Once you have conquered, tolerate no dissent. Your word is law. Those who obey it shall be favored. Those who defy it shall be punished as an example to those who might follow. You could say that about many different reigns of like lordship throughout history. I don't know that there is anything inherently evil to rule with an iron fist, especially if it's a barbaric territory that you just freed, right? To make sure that it doesn't fall into the wrong hands. You think about something like, if you're familiar with A Game of Thrones, either the book or the television show, there was quite a good period of time where Daenerys was off ruling these 3 slave trading cities before coming back to Westeros. Well, she was ruling them with an iron fist. And at the time, it seemed she was doing the right thing, right? She overthrown slave traders and freed the people. She thought she was doing the best thing for the people in that area. That kind of vibes with an Oath of Conquest. Finally, the last tenet is strength above all. You shall rule until a stronger one arises. Then you must grow mightier and meet the challenge, or fall to your own ruin. So there's always going to be someone bigger, stronger, faster. It's just how you let that happen, right? Is there an uprising against you? Is that evil coming your way? Because your oath may still bind you to protect if you are playing this from a good alignment. Some of the features that you get some pretty cool features with this subclass at 3rd, 7th, 15th, 18th, and 20th levels. We're going to dive into all those. Starting at 3rd level, when you choose this subclass, you get access to certain spells and a new Channel Divinity feature. As far as the spells are concerned, at 3rd level you get Armor of Agathes and Command. Command's a great one because it requires a saving throw, specifically Wisdom, and if your target fails that saving throw, they are subjected to your 1-word command. 1 word. Grovel could make somebody fall prone as they drop to their knees and bow their heads to you. Flee could get them to run away. Halt or stop will command them to maybe be stunned for a round. So there are many different ways in which you can use that 1 word. If it's not something that is currently listed within the spell, like approach, drop, flee, grovel, if you come up with your own 1-word command, just be specific when describing it to your dungeon master. Hey, I want to say this, and here's where I'm coming from, and go from there. Armor of Agathes is a magical force that surrounds yourself and lasts for an hour. Essentially, you gain 5 temporary hit points for the duration. If a creature hits you with a melee attack while you have these hit points, that creature takes 5 cold damage. This is something that you can upcast, and for each spell slot above 2nd and higher, both the temporary hit points and the cold damage increase by 5 for each slot. So if you cast this at 10th level, we're talking about, 5th level, 5 times 5, that's 25 temporary hit points and 25 cold damage for somebody that hits you while you have those temporary hit points. I like to see this spell used often when upcast. I think it could really change some of the tides in combat. When you upcast a spell like this, it's worth it. Some spells I feel like aren't worth the spell slot and casting it at a higher level to gain benefits. This is one of them that I feel like favors and gets better as you cast it at higher levels. Something worth to consider. There's a 5th level spell called Hold Person. Requires a Wisdom save. Otherwise, if they fail, they're paralyzed. Spiritual Weapon is a bonus action spell. It essentially summons a spectral weapon of your choice to float in an area that you can see up to 60 feet away. It can move. You can move the weapon up to 20 feet on a turn, and it essentially just makes an attack. It floats in the air. You can move it from target to target, and it makes an attack. If those who've played Baldur's Gate 3, you know the spell all too well, as it is something that typically is limited to clerics, although you get access to it as a paladin here at 5th level. When you reach 9th level, you can use Bestow Curse or Fear. Bestow Curse is a Wisdom saving throw. Otherwise, you could choose an ability score, and that target has disadvantage on ability checks and saving throws made with that score. So if you know you have a sorcerer or a wizard that has a lot of evocation magic like Fireball or Lightning Bolt, something that's going to require maybe a dex save, choose Dexterity and curse them that way. So when your teammates come behind you and try to use their spell that requires that save, you set them up perfectly with this curse by forcing that same target to have disadvantage on that throw. While cursed, the target has disadvantage on attack rolls against you. While cursed, the target must make a Wisdom saving throw at the start of each of their turns. If it fails, it wastes its action doing nothing. When a target is cursed, your actions and spells deal an extra 1d8 necrotic damage. These are options of what kind of curse you could bestow, so choose wisely. You could use the buff, as I described earlier, that first option. You could protect yourself by having the disadvantage on attack rolls against you, taking extra damage, wasting its turn. It all depends on what you're fighting, in my opinion, and what you should choose. So choose wisely when using a spell like this. Fear is going to require a Wisdom save, or it's going to become frightened of you for the duration, which is 1 minute, requiring your concentration. When a creature is frightened of you, it needs to take the dash action and moves as far away from you as possible, unless there is nowhere else to move. If the creature ends its turn in a location where it doesn't have line of sight of you, it can make the Wisdom saving throw again to try and break this fear. But essentially you get them to be afraid of you and run away, essentially wasting their turn running away. And remember, if they're engaged with other members of your party and they decide to turn and run, your party members are going to get opportunity attacks against it as it flees. So it's not a no damage spell. It has the potential for damage, but it's more of a I'm going to make you waste your turn kind of spell. And those are the spells that I love. At 13th level, you get Dominate Beast. This is essentially you charming a beast to be friendly to you and try to obey commands as best as they can without hurting or killing themselves. Stone Skin is an abjuration spell, concentration lasting an hour. Essentially, if you cast this on yourself or another target, it's going to have resistance to non-magical bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage, which could help protect them. So this is something I typically, as a paladin, would be looking at my sorcerer, my warlock, my wizard, and trying to protect them because they're squishy. And if they're going to take damage like this, I want to prolong that as much as possible. If you are in a very melee-heavy party and don't have a lot of casters, go put this on your barbarian, right? You're the front line of defense as a paladin, but you get to wear a lot of armor, and your AC is probably higher than your barbarians, so target them if you don't have any mages in your party. A little tip. At 17th level, you get access to a 5th level spell called Cloud Kill and Dominate Person. Dominate Person and Dominate Beast are essentially the same. It's a wisdom save, or they become charmed by you. They have to obey your commands as best as they can, as long as it doesn't harm or kill themselves. But it's for a person. Dominate Beast is for a beast, so be very careful as to what your target may be. Those nature checks may come in handy there. Cloud Kill is going to be more of an area of effect up to 120 feet out, creates a 20-foot radius, and it just fills that radius with like a poisonous cloud. It's going to deal 5d8 poison damage on a fail, or half as much as if they succeed the con save on that. It moves 10 feet away from you at the start of each of your turns, rolling around the surface of the ground. It can cut around corners because it is a cloud. Just know that if you want to keep it in a specific area, you want to target that specifically and choose your words wisely, because, again, it moves away from you 10 feet at the start of each of your turns. So if it's moving away and you want it to stay, it might be worth you moving to get it to move back to where it was to keep that going. Concentration, 10 minutes. It's a great spell that lasts a really long time. But your party members are going to need to make that save if they're in the area. As far as the Channel Divinity option is concerned that you get at 3rd level, you get a couple of different abilities here. Conquering Presence. You can use your Channel Divinity to exude a terrifying presence. As an action, you force a creature of your choice you could see within 30 feet to make a wisdom saving throw. On a fail, it becomes frightened of you for a minute. A frightened creature can repeat this throughout the end of each of its turns. Okay, so it might prolong combat and make them waste their turns if they're afraid of you. That's good. Guided Strike. You can use your Channel Divinity to strike with a supernatural accuracy. When you make an attack roll, you can use your Channel Divinity to get a +10 bonus to hit. When you make this choice after you see the roll, but before the DM says whether or it hits or misses. So you need to be judicious when you call this shot. Typically, this is not a round 1 thing that I would do. I would like to try and make an attack roll and determine the armor class so I could use a feature like this. So if I know I need a 17 to hit, I have a good chance of being correct if I know it beforehand. When I go to use my Gilded Strike, it won't be a waste. Okay, next feature you get is at 7th level, and it's called the Aura of Conquest. You constantly emanate a menacing aura when you're not incapacitated. The aura extends 10 feet from you in every direction, but not through total cover. If a creature is frightened of you, its speed is reduced to 0 while in the aura. And that creature takes psychic damage equal to half your paladin level if it starts its turn there. At 18th level, the range expands from 10 feet to a 30-foot radius from you. So this is a good way to stack. If you want to use something or a feature like your Channel Divinity to make something frightened of you, once you're at 7th level, your next move might be to use your Aura of Conquest to stop them from moving completely. And then they're just going to take psychic damage, half your paladin level. So at 7th level, we're talking about 3 damage. But it's not moving, it's afraid, and it is going to essentially waste its turn so long as you are emanating this presence, this menacing aura. At 15th level, you get a feature called Scornful Rebuke. Whenever a creature hits you with an attack, that creature takes psychic damage equal to your charisma modifier if you're not incapacitated. Paladins are weapon users first. So depending on the weapon you choose to use, you might want to stack up your strength or your dexterity as your primary ability score. When building your paladin, it is recommended that you focus on charisma next, because that is what fuels your spells. Your spells aren't everything. You're not a primary spellcaster. So I would make charisma maybe your second or third highest ability score when creating your character. But for instances like this, the higher that charisma modifier, the better off your Scornful Rebuke would be. So you need to consider your features when you're looking at ability score improvements, which are things that you get at 4th, 8th, 12th, 16th, and I think 19th levels. You need to consider that because it might increase the output here. If you're maxed out on strength, start dumping into your con to get your HP up. Start putting more focus into your charisma so features like this hit a little bit harder. Invincible Conqueror. At 20th level, as an action, you can magically become an Avatar of Conquest, gaining the following benefits for a minute. You have resistance to all damage. You already have a high AC. Resistance to all damage? Yes, please. When you take the attack action on your turn, you can make one additional attack as part of that action. Awesome, because at 5th level, I get extra attack. So if I attack, if I use the attack action, I'm hitting twice because I have extra attack. But I get a third one based on this feature. Because I took the attack action, I get one additional attack as part of that action. Sign me up. 3 hits, I'll do that all day. Your melee weapon attacks score a critical on a 19 or a 20. So instead of a natural 20, it's natural 19 or 20. They're both crits once you reach 20th level. That is your Invincible Conqueror. Once you use this feature, you can't use it again until you finish a long rest. Okay, I'm good with that. That, my friends, is going to be your Oath of Conquest. The other option here is called the Oath of Redemption. This is going to be, in my opinion, a little bit better for you if your party or your table is more roleplay heavy. If you like options and potential solutions to encounters that don't require combat, the Oath of Redemption is actually a great choice, even though it's for a Paladin, which is a melee class, because this is going to be something for those who dedicate themselves to this oath, believe that any person can be redeemed, and the path of benevolence and justice is one that anyone can walk. They view violence as a last resort. So it's not that you're not going to be combative as an Oath of Redemption Paladin. You're just going to be more willing to give them a chance to explain. And that's where those rich role-play moments are going to come into play at the table. You're going to try and persuade or deceive, maybe. You might try and convince them to turn the other way or stand down before you get into combat encounters. That's going to be your first natural instinct. And because of that, I really would put a heavy focus on charisma as my primary ability modifier here. Because if violence is my last resort, I'm going to be the talker of the party. And a lot of those features come along with the charisma feature. And because you are a paladin, your spell casting is still there. That uses your charisma. It makes sense to me, if you're going to go Oath of Redemption, to put all your eggs in the charisma basket and make that your highest ability score, then go Constitution for your health, or strength or dex based on that last resort weapon that you're going to need to use. This is also a great subclass that could be very setting specific. For example, Wizards of the Coast has a campaign called The Wild Beyond the Witchlight. It takes place in the Feywild, but there's a lot of opportunity to talk your way through and roleplay through many, if not all, of the encounters in that story. Now, they've gone ahead and said, you could do this whole campaign and never fight once. Maybe. I haven't seen that yet. But that doesn't mean that there aren't tables out there that could pull that off. But boy, an Oath of Redemption Paladin would really shine in a setting like The Wild Beyond the Witchlight, because there are those conversation type of enemies in that campaign that are going to want to talk before they swing at you. You break into their home, they're going to want to know why. They're not just going to go into self-defense mode. So that's just an idea. The tenets, again, tenets are very important when playing a paladin, are very different from the Oath of Conquest. Peace is the first one. Violence is a weapon of last resort. Diplomacy and understanding are the paths to long-lasting peace. Innocence. People begin life on an innocent state, and their environment or the influence of dark forces drives them to evil. By setting the proper example and working to heal the wounds of a deeply flawed world, you set anyone on a righteous path. Patience. Change takes time. Those who have walked the path of the wicked must be given reminders to keep them honest and true. If you've planted the seed of righteousness in a creature, you must work day after day to allow that seed to survive and flourish. Anybody out there that is religious in any way or spiritual in any way, that might speak to you, because it's true. Wisdom. Your heart and mind must stay clear, for eventually you'll be forced to admit defeat. Time out. If this is something that intrigues you, you might want to put a renewed focus in your wisdom. You might want to go charisma wisdom and really lean into that. The point I'm making in giving you these tips or suggestions is, like, you don't have to do things one way. Just because somebody at your table has played a paladin before and went max 20 on their strength and 20 on their constitution because they wanted to be that knight, that warrior, that's fine for their build. That doesn't necessarily mean that applies here, so get creative. This is your character after all. While every creature can be redeemed, some are so far along the path of evil that you have no choice but to end their lives for the greater good. Any such action must be carefully weighed and the consequences fully understood. But once you have made this decision, follow through with it, knowing your path is just. Those are the tenets of the Oath of Redemption. You do get some pretty cool features, starting at 3rd and then at 7th, 15th, 18th, and 20th levels. Starting at 3rd level, when you choose this subclass, you get Oath spells and Channel Divinity options. As far as the spells are concerned, when you're at 3rd level, you get Sanctuary and Sleep. Sanctuary is a bonus action spell. You ward a creature within range, 30 feet, against attack. Until the spell ends, any creature who targets the warded creature with an attack or harmful spell must first make a wisdom save. It's like making them rethink their choices. On a failed save, the creature must choose a new target, or they lose the attack or that spell. This spell doesn't protect the warded creature from area of effects, like Fireball, because it is not targeting them specifically, it's targeting an area. So if a enemy is targeting a specific creature, it could be you under Sanctuary, it could be a teammate under Sanctuary. If they're targeting them specifically, that enemy needs to make a wisdom save to even know if it's going to go through. Whereas Sleep is, you target creatures in an area, okay? Up to 90 feet that you can see, create a 20-foot radius, and starting with the creature with the lowest amount of hit points is how this works first. At 1st level, you're going to roll 5d8, okay? 5d8 on average is about 20 hit points. So if you're targeting an area, and we start with the person with lowest hit points, you've got 20 to work with, or whatever you roll. That's how much you have in a pool to work with. Let's say it's 20 points. The creature with the lowest amount of hit points maybe has 8. They fall asleep. So 20 minus 8, you have 12 hit points left. The next creature with the lowest amount of hit points, how many do they have? Because if it's less than 12, they fall asleep too. And that's how you use the sleep spell. You could be knocking creatures unconscious and just sneak right around them, okay? That fits an Oath of Redemption Paladin because it's technically not violent. You're just putting them to sleep to get through the room. You don't need to kill your way through. But that is a great way to use the sleep spell. At 5th level, you have Calm Emotions. So it's basically a charisma save. And you can either charm or frighten them. Hold Person, we've talked about this before. This is a wisdom save. If they fail it, they're paralyzed. This is a way to hold them still and get that person, it's like crowd control, get them to waste their turn. At 9th level, you get access to Counterspell and Hypnotic Pattern. Counterspell is what it sounds like. When another creature casts a spell, so maybe you're fighting against a mage or some kind of creature that can spell cast, and they cast a spell, you can use your reaction to cast counterspell. You can negate that spell so long as it is 3rd level or lower, the spell that is triggering you to want to counterspell it. Because this is a 3rd level spell, it's not going to negate any spell 3rd or lower. You can't use a 3rd level counterspell to negate a 5th level spell attack because it outweighs you. But that's where upcasting counterspell comes into play. You might need to burn a counterspell at higher levels to negate a higher level spell automatically. There still is a way to do it. You could counterspell a 5th level spell with your 3rd level counterspell, but you got to roll for that. And the DC is going to be 10 plus the spell's level. So if they cast a 5th level spell, it's a DC of 15. On a success, you negate the spell. But on a failure, it's going to go through, and you've just wasted a spell slot. A high one. 3rd level spell's nothing to sneeze at. Especially if you upcast it and you still miss. Oof. So it's going to be worth you paying close attention to the spells that are being cast at the table and the spell slots that you have available to use. But Counterspell has been and will continue to be one of the best spells in the game and a party saver. Hypnotic Pattern is a 30-foot cube in a 120-foot range. It's concentration lasting a minute. The pattern basically creates weaves and twisting patterns of colors in that cube. Each creature in the area who sees that pattern needs to make a wisdom saving throw. Otherwise, they become charmed. While they're charmed, their speed is 0 and they're incapacitated. They are just literally hypnotized by it. And it's a good way to get them to waste their turn. Again, this is a non-violent way to stop violence or avoid violence. At 13th level, Odaluk's Resilient Sphere and Stone Skin. Stone Skin, we've seen this before. You touch someone, and they get resistance to non-magical bludgeoning, slashing, and piercing. Odaluk's Resilient Sphere is a 4th level spell. It's a minute requiring a concentration. It is a dexterity saving throw, so any unwilling creature that is finding itself in the sphere must make the dex saving throw. Otherwise, they're enclosed within the sphere for the duration. Nothing. Not physical objects, not energy, no other spells can pass through the barrier in or out, though a creature in the sphere can breathe there. The sphere is immune to all damage, and a creature or object inside can't be damaged by attacks or effects from the outside, nor can a creature inside the sphere damage anything outside the sphere. So you could essentially put somebody in timeout and stop them from attacking you so much. You could also put one of your teammates who are low on health or maybe dying in the sphere to protect them. Maybe it gives them an opportunity to get to their turn in the initiative order so they could drink a health potion and heal themselves. And now they're feeling a little bit stronger and they're ready to re-engage. That is a good way to use that spell too. At 17th level, we have Hold Monster, similar to Hold Person, just for monsters. And Wall of Force. So Wall of Force is going to be the ability to have a wall appear in any orientation that you choose, as horizontal or a vertical barrier or at an angle. It could be free floating, resting on a solid surface. You can form it into a hemispherical dome or a sphere with a radius of up to 10 feet, or you could shape a flat surface made up of 10 by 10 foot panels. Each panel must be contiguous with another panel. In any form, the wall is a 1/4 inch thick. It lasts for the duration, which requires concentration for 10 minutes. Nothing can pass through this wall. It is immune to all damage and can't be dispelled by a Dispel Magic spell. A Disintegrate spell it destroys the wall instantly. Disintegrate is a very high-level spell and is one of the few things that can destroy a Wall of Force. The wall also extends into the ethereal plane, blocking ethereal travel through the wall. So that can help keep some of your more ethereal, loving fae at bay. So again, this is another protection spell. So you could see within the spells where it's either about protecting or moving around or avoiding taking damage or sometimes even avoiding violence. These are true buffers. So if you really wanted to play a buffing paladin, this might be the way to go. Also at 3rd level, you get your Channel Divinity options. Emissary of Peace. You can use your Channel Divinity to augment your presence with a divine power. As a bonus action, you grant yourself a +5 bonus to persuasion checks for the next 10 minutes. That might be good if you're getting in a negotiation situation. Rebuke the Violent. You can use your Channel Divinity to rebuke those who use violence. Immediately after an attacker within 30 feet of you deals damage with an attack against a creature other than you, you can use your reaction to force the attacker to make a wisdom saving throw. On a failed save, the attacker takes radiant damage equal to the damage it just dealt. On a successful save, it takes half. So you got a heavy hitter that just smacked your party around real good, rebuke the violent, and get them to take that damage as radiant or half if they pass. Love that. Love that feature. That might be my favorite channel divinity. Okay. Aura of the Guardian at 7th level. When a creature within 10 feet of you takes damage, you could use your reaction to magically take that damage instead of the creature taking it. This feature doesn't transfer any other effects that might accompany the damage, like poisoned or also blind. You just take the damage away. The damage can't be reduced in any other way. So you're at full health and somebody's targeting your mage, you could use this to take that damage that they just took. At 18th level, the aura goes from 10 feet to 30 feet, giving you more options to protect your party. At 15th level, you get Protective Spirit. When you regain hit points, equal to 1d6 plus half your paladin level if you end your turn in combat with fewer than half your hit points remaining and you're not incapacitated. You just heal just because. I don't know about you, but I like healing just because. I'll take a d6 and half my paladin level. I get this at 15th level, so you're talking about 7? So a d6 plus 7? I just rolled a 2. 2 and 7 is 9. I'll take 9 hit points anytime you want to give them to me. Thank you very much. 20th level, Emissary of Redemption. You have resistance to all damage dealt by other creatures, their attacks, their spells, and other effects. Whenever a creature hits you with an attack, it takes radiant damage equal to half the damage you just took. I just think about being at 20th level and all the possible creatures that you could fight at 20th level, be it Vecna, a Tarask, an Ancient Dragon. If an Ancient Dragon whops me for like 80 damage, and I could just use a reaction to give them radiant damage for 40 points out of that 80, I will take that all day. And again, that's not you being violent. It's the result of them being violent. So if you want to play limited or non-violent Paladin, I'm having a hard time not finding a way that this could still be fun as a Paladin. For those Paladin purists or Paladin mains out there, you're thinking, but I want to swing my sword. I get it. But just for touching me or looking at me wrong, I can do a bunch of stuff. I don't know, man. I like being protected and alive more than I like swinging a sword, depending on my mood. But this is a great feature. So, my friends, that is the Oath of Conquest and Oath of Redemption. Join us again, because the next class we're going to look at here in Xanathar's Guide to Everything is the Ranger subclasses that are offered in this book. Those are going to be the Gloomstalker, the Horizon Walker, and the Monster Slayer. So you Witcher fans are going to really like that one. Until then, keep rolling those dice, and we'll see you at the table.